Hey guys, and welcome. I am Zemore, the dad and dad play stuff, and first off I'd like to apologise for the lack of uploads in the past 2 months. I started back at my workplace and had some major real life stuff happen, and me and my family have been having a tough time. As a result, I've found not a lot of motivation to create videos and upload. Combine that with the fact I've had very little time as well, so again, I can only apologise for that. However, today is different. As you can likely tell by the video tags, I've been playing a lot of Fallout 76. And for anyone who plays it, welcome to the first episode of what I like to call What the Scrap. Now, this is pretty much a series where I'm going to talk about the best ways I've found to acquire certain valuable resources in Appalachia. So sit back and enjoy today's episode as we talk about acid. Now, acid is a pretty damn valuable resource in Fallout 76. Primarily, you use it to smelt the many different types of ore in Appalachia. As such, I found myself using it quite a bit in ammo production, as I use a huge amount of ammo. Now, you combine that with the one wasteland system coming in the next patch, and I foresee this becoming even more the case. Now, when it comes to getting acid, there are several key creatures you should consider. The first is the Yamagwai, a hulking bear with no hair. Pretty much a staple for most Fallout games. Next is a Snallygaster, which in my opinion looks like someone has stretched a ball sack over a Komodo dragon and filled it with a load of acid, but that's maybe just me. We have cave crickets, which, pretty self-explanatory. Massive crickets that are for some reason man-eating. And finally, Grafton monsters, which pretty much looks like somebody chopped the Incredible Hulk's head off and covered him in grease. Now, these aren't the only enemies that can drop acid, or even have items that can be turned into acid, but they certainly are the most consistent. Each, when killed, drop around 5 to 8 waste acid. As a result, finding locations where they show up in large numbers is key. The first creature we're going to look into is the Yamagwai. Now, there are plenty of areas where these horrifying bears can spawn, but in my experience, the most consistent and farmable has to be in the Toxic Valley. Now, there's several very large spawns of radstags that appear, and these radstags attract predators. Now, more often than not, these are going to be Yamagwai, and there can be anything between 2 to 4 at a time. On top of that, these spawns can refresh fairly often, so wandering around the area can rack up quite a few resources. However, they aren't always going to be Yamagwai. Pretty much most creatures can spawn here, and that can obviously be problematic, but it can get you a lot of resources and other types of things. Now, this area tends to be around the Granager Farm, the Black Bear Lodge, Kiddie Corner Cabins, the Toxic Dread Lake Beg, that kind of general area. And you pretty much just need to wander around, kill stuff, and gather up these resources as a result. Little side note, the only other real consistent spawn place for them tends to be down at the mountainside bed and breakfast, where you can find 2 Yamagwai down the railroad tracks. It's only 2, it's not really worth going there consistently, but it's an option. Next, we'll move on to Snallygasters. Now, fortunately, these buggers have several spawn locations on the map, usually appearing in groups of around 2 to 3. The first is over near the Charleston Capitol building. There's also a spawn of a Grafton monster nearby, so I always recommend killing it. Normally I find at least 2 Snallies here, but, it isn't always consistent. I'm fairly certain in earlier playthroughs I found 3 or more, but I could be misremembering, but in my testing I only really found 2. Next, we have Kiddie's Corner Cabins in the Toxic Valley. Now, normally there are 3 to 4 Snallygasters here, but sometimes there can also be Rad Scorpions, or a combination of the two. I don't know if the Rad Scorpions show up to fight the Snallygasters and they can kill each other, but either way, I do consistently find the Snallygasters there rather than the Scorpions. Now, this next location is mainly for the Grafton monster. Over at Hemlock Holes, you'll find a crashed vertibird just a little distance away. As I said, there's normally always a Grafton monster there unless someone's killed it. However, on occasion you can find a group of Snallygasters that spawn and fight said grafting monster, and it makes it a decent location for acid, and for another reason that I'll go into in a little bit. Now, by far this next location I find to be the most profitable. It involves the cave crickets and the location Tanagra Town. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this place, it is basically an abandoned town that has a massive weird tree thing growing out of the middle of it. And if you attempt to climb this tree using some time jumps or just having the marsupial perk and just launching yourself up there, there are a ton of cave crickets inside what's essentially a raised cave that's up the tree. Now this is by far the most abundant location for mobs in one spawn, so it's likely the best one to basically world hop in order to farm acid. I found, I want to say, anywhere between 8 and 10 crickets in this area, which works out to be anywhere between like 50 to, be no good at math, 50 to 80? Yeah, 80, that would make sense. Yeah, 50 to 80 acid. Now, whilst these locations are the most consistent I've found for obtaining acid, there are a few instances where you can gain a lot of acid in a short amount of time. First off, we have Horde Events. Now, if you don't know what these are, basically your mission is to kill the leader of the horde of a certain species of creature. In this case, on screen, it's the Yamagwai. The great thing about this is that it spawns a metric ton of that creature in the location, so for, as you can see, a mere 30 seconds work, I get around 45 acid. Another event I'd recommend highly is Project Paradise. Now, if you don't know what this is, it basically spawns over at the Arctos Pharmaceuticals lab. Essentially, it's, you know, a horde defense event where you have to protect a creature. But before you protect this creature, you have to basically decide how strong it's going to be by feeding it meat. In this case, the one I recommend is the venison one, and I believe it's over in section A. There are 3 sections. So look for rad stags. Find the rad stags, kill them, put it into the feeder. And it usually summons a death claw. Now, once you've got through this kind of section of it, the whole entirety of the event tends to be spawning things like cave crickets and Yamagwai or Snallygasters. Now, the Snallygasters are in a different section from the cave crickets and the Yamagwai, but, you know, them's the rub. After the event's over, you can wander around and kill off the remaining mobs, so, you know, once you've killed everything in the section A, go over to B and C and see if there's anything that can drop waste acid. In this event, I think you could easily get several hundred acid if you either fight the spawns right or, you know, just get lucky, I suppose. Now, obviously, these are just mainly killing creatures for the resource. There are a lot of items in game that can be broken down to acid. For example, I'd recommend picking up any and all Abraxo you find out in the world. But there's also a lazy method which involves a workshop, and that's simply put, take over Hemlock Holes. It has 3 acid nodes in the area, and you can just dump a collector on each and wait until it harvests. Now, each machine only holds about 10 acid, so you do have to check back quite frequently, but it is a really easy and lazy method because you can just sit watching some TV or basically doing something else in the background, tidying your room, tidying your house, whatever. I find it's the best thing to do if you've got if you've got Fallout first. You can just set up a private world and go around the map and harvest acid from any and all nodes that you could potentially have by taking over all the workshops and whatnot. But Hemlock Holes is by far the most profitable one because it has those 3 nodes. On top of that, you can also then jump to the nearby locations like, as I said, the Snallygasters that are potentially right beside it, as well as a grafting monster, the Yamagwai in the Toxic Valley, and kiddie corner cabins for more Snallygasters. So that's today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it and thank you very much for watching. Now, if you have any suggestions of how to farm acid and other resources, don't forget to leave them down below in the comments. It would help me and likely a lot of other people out. And I hope this has helped inform people that have been struggling to get acid in order to create ammo. And smelting in general. So again, thanks for watching, and this is Zemor signing out.